Last week you saw us make steak and potato packets, and this morning we're going to show you how we turn it into hash for brunch. Enjoy! Hi, welcome back to One Dish, Two Ways. So last week we showed you how we do steak, beef in portobello, and those potato packets. And then I said we'd wake up the next day and show you what we're going to do with leftovers. And here we are. So we are going to make our version of hash with all the leftovers plus something else that was in the fridge. So I have already started with, I had some broccoli in the fridge. And so I chopped that up into smaller pieces. And I'm going to add that to my hash. Now we've got the portobello mushrooms left over. So I'm going to go ahead and chop those up really quick. It's just going to be a rough chop, not anything too fancy or anything. And that will go into my hash. Okay. And then we've got we neglected when we were putting the hash away, I flipped over the other foil packets and you see all the crispy that we got, which was perfect. So now this was what was left over. So we're just going to do a rough chop on that. Let's do the steak. No, let's do that first. Whoop. We're just going to do just a quick chop because they're already, like Joe said, thin, but we want to make it so that we can pick them up with a fork and it's kind of the same size as everything else. So now I'm going to put some back in that for Joe's. There we go. And then I'm going to put it in this one for mine. And as per usual, I make a mess. That's just part of cooking. I always clean it up. It's not like Joe has to clean up my messes. So put that in here. Joe, can you get the skillets to start warming up while I cut the steak? So again, we're not going to be using any oil for this. So we need to get our skillets up to a good temperature. So when we put these ingredients in, they will immediately start working. Sometimes if your skillet is not hot enough, then you run the risk of the food kind of it's like boiling, or it's just not going to do the right thing. Not boil because there's no water in there, but it's just not going to be as good. So we want to get that fry started from the beginning. So I'm going to start cutting Joe's steak. So it's perfect because now it won't get so much. Are you adding oil to yours?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so he's adding oils to his. So when we get over there, you'll see that he's going to have the left-hand side. Actually, I forgot he has the camera up above. I'm not adding any oil to mine. So I've got his steak cut up. And probably per most things, sometimes when I make the leftovers, we end up having leftovers of the leftovers. But that's okay. That's just part of it. So I'm going to put the steak in there. And then we're going to go over.
Not yet.
Oh, not yet. Not yet. So here's another option. I was debating whether I should do that or the hash. We opted to go for the hash, but I do want to tell you another option you could have for the mushroom one. You could make a savory oatmeal. And I don't know if you've ever made savory oatmeal, but it is very good. Now, I don't eat savory oatmeal at 6 o'clock in the morning. This is mid-morning on Sunday. We've been to church. We've been up for several hours. Joe's already been outside. So now we're ready for things that are not just breakfasty. But you could add your water or your non-dairy milk to your oatmeal and then cut up your mushrooms and add that in. And you would have like a creamy oatmeal, savory oatmeal. And it is very cold this morning and it would taste very good. But because we wanted to do the one dish, two ways, we decided to go with hash for both of us. Hence why I'm using broccoli. Because number one, it was in the fridge to use. And number two, why not add some greens to it? So we're going to start with mine. So I've got half of those leftover hashed potatoes. I've got the cut up mushrooms and the broccoli. Yeah, this will probably be more than we can eat in one serving. But that's okay. So Joe's got his. You put butter and oil in here?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm going to throw his in very carefully. It's another way. If you also know that if you're very sensitive to the doneness of your steak, if you know that you are going to use it for leftovers or heat it up at work, then you could slightly undercook it the way you normally would like it. That way, when you heat it up, it'll be perfect. So I'm going to get those started. Is mine not on enough?
I turned it down.
Okay, so I'm going to spread mine. Oh, yeah, you need to go way higher to get started.
Well, I didn't want to.
Yeah, I know. This is that ultra heat one, but we got to get it going. Okay, so we've got them going. So let's go ahead and go ahead and get our seasonings in while they're coming up. So Joe wants a little bit of steak seasoning on his. This is just one we buy in the store, right? It's Montreal steak seasoning. And how much would you like?
I wouldn't say more than half teaspoon or so.
Half teaspoon right here. So that's going to have some salt in it. So you're going to have salt in the butter. You have salt in this. So be aware of that if you are watching your salt count. And then
beware, that is very, very salty.
Yes.
Steak seasoning.
It is. You still want all-purpose seasoning? So this is my homemade all-purpose seasoning. I did a video on that, 3 or 4 weeks ago now, for you. And how much would you like of that?
Couple, half teaspoon.
So 1 teaspoon.
Whatever.
Okay. So get that on here. Okay. I also want one of my 1 teaspoon of my all-purpose seasoning because this is salt-free. I don't make it with any salt. I am also going to kick mine up a bit and add some Southwest Chipotle. And we know Mrs. Dash is also salt-free. So I'm going to add a teaspoon of that just to give it a little bit different flavor. And I love Chipotle. One of the restaurants sometimes I go with a friend of mine in town, they have a tofu scramble. And they use Chipotle in it, and it's so good. So that's what gave me the idea to do that. Now, Joe is going to add cheese to his when we get there. I'm going to make mine a cheesy flavor by adding nutritional yeast. So I'm going to add 1 tablespoon of that to my version. Now, nutritional yeast can be an acquired taste. Cilantro was an acquired taste for us. The first time we used to watch, what was his name?
Emerald
Lagasse, and he made everything so exciting in the kitchen. And he was using all this cilantro, and we were like, oh, this is amazing. We go and buy it. Now, the one thing about hash is you want crisp. So you don't want to move this too much so that you can actually get crisp on the bottom section, and then we'll flip. So I'm just trying to move that around a little bit. And so he was using all this cilantro, and we were like, oh, we're going to go get it. We went and bought it. We chopped it up. We probably, number one, used too much to begin with, but then we tried it, and we were like, oh, this is not what we thought it was. It didn't taste like soap. I know there's several people that things taste like soap, and that's not what it was. It was just we used too much. And that's how I felt about nutritional yeast when I first started whole food plant-based cooking. I was like, oh, this might not be for me. But over time, I have realized it's not cheesy as in it doesn't take the place of this. But I hardly ever, I think every once in a while, I'll go somewhere and they'll have like a vegan pizza. I think on vacation, we went somewhere and they had like the Daiya cheese spread. But other than that, I don't buy that stuff because I don't need that processed food. So anyway, this will give you the cheesy flavor, but it's not going to be everything. So I want to get mine completely stirred around here because now it's finally up to temp and making moves. If you wanted a little bit of liquid, I mean, again, we're trying to get a fry on this. You could add a little bit of Worcestershire or maybe soy sauce to it. It's an option for you. So we're doing good over here. We are making progress. Well, he's just over here getting all kinds of things done. So he's going to add eggs on top of his hash, right? You're doing it on top, not a scramble.
Yep.
You could do it as a scramble. You could just scramble the eggs up in here. The other thing is, if your family was not dual, you could make a big hash, and you could actually do it. I always have ideas of, you'd never have to do it this way. Think outside the box. Pancakes, a good idea. Pancakes, you can only make so many at a time, and then not everybody can eat together. And now you come up with sheet pan pancakes. That's awesome. You can do this you can do this hash on a sheet pan. and put everything in there together. Throw it in the oven with your veggies, whatever meat you have left over. You could do it as a brinner where it's breakfast and dinner together. But then if it's all in the oven, you've got time to do other things. We're going to have bananas with ours, which you can make a fruit salad. And then everybody eats together. So these are just things you might want to try, especially as we come in towards the holidays and you might have extra people at the house. It would be a way so you're not standing over the stove if you're making for a lot of people. So Joe's going to come on camera and do his eggs and stuff like that. I just don't do the. I have never mastered, even when I ate eggs, the way Joe likes them. He's very specific about it. So he's going to be doing his own cooking on this video, which is cool with me. So as you can see, Joe's is getting all brown because he's got that oil in there. Mine will get brown without the oil in there. It's just going to be different. And he will end up with leftovers. He'll be eating half of this tomorrow for breakfast, which is fine. Sometimes that happens, but at least it's a little different than it was last night. So, honey, anything you would like to say while we continue to fry these up?
Not really. It's coming along.
It is. It's going to be fantastic.
Smells good.
Yes, it really does. All the different seasonings smell really, really good. And you might have a seasoning in the back of your cupboard. I suggest every 6 months or so, take everything out of your spice cabinet because you never know what's in there. I mean, sometimes you're like, well, I don't remember buying that. Or you might have a mix you bought at a store and you need to start using it. So it's always something to do. Joe can fast forward through this part, right, to get us to the final countdown here. Oh my gosh, this is looking so good. And mine, because it was just the mushrooms and the potatoes, it was going to be so bland looking. So that's why I was like, oh, I've got broccoli in the fridge. This is going to be perfect. And so that's why I opted to put the broccoli in. You could put any other green veggie in. You could do spinach in here. If you had some leftover tomatoes, you could do that. And then, of course, we've got peppers and onions in there from the potatoes last night. Mine is looking phenomenal. Ooh. Now, the potatoes, because of the way that we cook them, they do kind of, you see that there's a little clump here. That's going to be that. It's going to be soft in the middle, but he might get some crust on the outside. It's not going to be, oh, here he's already putting cheese on. It's just shredded Mexican cheese that we had from another dish that we did earlier in the week. So, do you want to pull that off to the side, start your eggs? Okay. If you cover these dishes up, it's going to do more steaming than crisping. So that if whatever you want to do, that's just an option for you. So by taking that off, that cheese will just melt naturally. He's going to cover it up. And then he's going to cook his eggs. And he can tell you how he does that because he's an over easy guy, which I never got the concept of over easy when I ate eggs. So you're up, babe. Don't you already have butter in there?
I actually prefer sunny side up, but a lot of people frown on that these days. But because of we basically have our own chickens, so I know where our eggs come from. I'm not too concerned about anything, bad diseases or poisons or anything like that. But over easy tends to be better for this kind of dish. I think most people would like that or the other way, but not much to it. 2 eggs, I just put them in here to crack them open. And then once I got them cracked open, I can, once I have them cracked open, I can let them just sit here. They're at room temperature, which I think helps as well. And then and I use a smaller dish, so that way I get these 2 eggs with the yolk and the whites. Once that fills up, it kind of thickens out. If you use too big of a plate, they thin out, and then you have these overcooked whites, and then your yolks and some of the white doesn't ever, you have to wait forever for it to cook. So here we're getting there going. I just put a little bit of Pam down at the bottom just to give a little help non-stick. And then butter is obviously there for flavor. And then pepper.
Also, if you do it this way, you don't worry. If you've cracked them ahead of time, you don't got to worry about getting shells in there because you can get the shells out before. Because I've done that multiple times, or I'll have this whole drippage thing and I got to clean the stove, and it can be a thing. So actually, him doing it that way actually saves in the end.
Plus, it helps if you really don't want to break your yolks, putting them in the thing, and like you saw me, where I just barely poured them in there, creates less havoc in their world, and they can won't break your yolks. Again, because of our chickens and what we feed them and everything, they have really strong, good eggs, good yolks. Everything comes out really good a lot of times. So basically, once you get them in there and you just kind of let them steam and fry up at the same time, in just a couple minutes, they'll be ready. At this point,
oh, there you go. There's his. The cheese melted all on its own just because of the heat, the residual heat of the potatoes, the peppers, the onions, and the steak.
so
The
you can
chickens
see
love
there-
food prep day because they get all the veggie scraps.
So you can see there that everything's all nice and I'll probably, I don't know, depends on my mood. There's days I've eaten right out of the skillet because why make another dish when it's just
Look at that.
me eating
That crisp. Look at that crisp.
But Sheila's got plates over here today, so we can do that. So I'll go ahead and. So there we go. You see how they don't stick? I might just leave them sunny side up. They're looking good like that.
Oh. I was gonna, for the video, I was gonna put the eggs on top, but Joe doesn't like food combined, so I'm glad that he's doing this. So you're gonna put them all on your plate.
If I don't eat it.
That is quite a plate of food. And we will be trying this on camera. Don't worry. Oh, I love this. The crisp. Everything's done. It's going to have mushrooms in there. And okay, everything's off. So you want to move the camera and I'll get the forks. Obviously, we got to have fruit. So I didn't make a fruit salad this morning. I know a lot of times I do, but we're going to have bananas today. So there is our hashes. Did you need a knife too or just a fork?
I should just need
Okay. Okay, let's dig in here. This is going to be so hot. Make sure I get broccoli too. The outside potatoes are crispy. Inside are so tender. The broccoli's perfectly cooked, a little crispy too. The chipotle, I just got a bite of it. It's not too much. That is really, really good. How's yours?
That steak I purposely chose. Last night we had cooked two steaks. One was typical inch thick, pretty much through and through. The other one was a little smaller, but it was probably 1.5 inches thick. So I purposely used the 1 inch thick for our meal and our video last night. But I saved the thicker one today because I knew inside it was more of a medium rare at best. And I like medium to medium well. So by reheating it and cooking it this way, I have the steak just the way I like it. It's not burnt. It's not dried out. But yet, you know, with the potatoes and the cheese and everything, you got a good combination of moisture to crunch or, you know, the meaty portion of it. And the eggs are just the way they should be. So I'm good with this.
It's perfect. So thank you all so much for joining us. And tell us, what do you put in your leftover hash? What do you take that you normally would eat, put it into a dinner hash, and call it Brinner? So thank you so much for joining us, and we will see you next week. Have a great week, everybody.